You're listening to the Staffa Corner Podcast, a Staffa-tarian look at entertainment and life, with your host, Greg Staffa.
My guest this episode is the lovely Mariana Trevino, who can be seen in the current Apple TV series Stick. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Greg. Thank you for having me.
From A Man Called Otto and Stick, you've worked with one of the top talents of the industry. What's left? I mean, who else can you work with? That I mean, you've done most actresses' dreams of working with some of the top talent. What's that been like?
Yeah, exactly. What you just pointed out. I mean, I'm very conscious of that. I was just talking about it in a previous interview. I was saying, like, I am so grateful that I have gotten to work with two of the best actors for me in my dream list. You know, my references, of my life for comedy and for just like heartfelt acting, luminous acting, like Tom Hanks and Owen Wilson. So I'm just really grateful. I don't know. I must have done something really good. I was telling someone in my past life for this to happen, because it's any actor's dream. And really, as you say, what's left in me, I'm so happy that this has happened, that I'm like, okay, so I can like be in peace now, from my acting points of views. No, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful because the way we actors learn, just to be acting with them and to be able to observe how they work, where their emotion is coming from, because we actors learn from exposure to one another. You know what I mean? Like also like just exposing each other's souls, so to speak, so to say. I mean, it's just really enriching to us as actors and as people, because we work as actors, from my point of view, with what we perceive, with what our soul is able to catch and from somebody else's soul. So just the exposure to them, in the sense of being able to have dialogues and look into each other's eyes and have that kind of interchange, is just been really wonderful for me as a person and as an actress. Yeah, really enriching, and I'm just really, really grateful for that.
Now, you may be new to most audiences in the U.S., but you have been acting for a long time. Tell us what got you started in acting.
I guess I was doing many other things before acting that have to do with the body. Like I did 4 years of dance, and I was in a conservatory. I did some singing too. So I was like getting close and maybe perhaps unconsciously preparing for my acting career, since I think acting encloses and englobes all those things. So I was just working myself towards that point. And I was studying some singing in Boston. In actuality, my friends from Monterrey, Mexico, where I'm from, had for some reason all gone to Boston to study there. They're musicians, and they were studying like MPN, music production and engineering. Some of them were studying, one of my good friends was doing piano career. So I went there for the summer following them, and because I liked singing. And while I was in Boston, I started realizing, like, okay, there's something else there for me. I don't know what it is. I didn't feel so much that I could stay there and do a career as a singer. So I don't know. I guess it was just one walking through the streets of Boston and seeing, I think I saw a university, a campus that was there, and I saw acting department, something. I don't remember precisely, but I think it was something that I saw somewhere in the middle of the streets in Boston that called my attention, that had to do with acting. And it just started ruminating, and it was like, I started getting the idea. And one of my good friends that was a trumpet player was like, why don't you go to New York? It's right next door. There's many acting schools over there. Why don't you take a train one day and go to some of them and see what you feel, and if it resonates with you. And so I did that, and it did. And I stayed for the next 4 years in New York, searching for that.
Most actors I've talked to have always had like a shy childhood where acting, when they discovered acting, was an escape to kind of get out of their shell. Is that what you found, or what was it about acting that gave you the freedom?
I guess it was as I was saying, it was like I did things always within the art world, and I was without unknowingly, like preparing myself for the acting world, because I do think that in my case it was kind of like life led me there. And when I started acting, when I saw the acting school, when I went in to see like the acting school, following my friend's advice, and I entered that world, I went to the neighborhood place house, I went to other schools, and as soon as I crossed the threshold to the acting school, and I saw some classes, I don't remember, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. Like my soul recognized itself in that kind of environment. And I started taking acting classes, and I was like, I know this. I recognize I can do this. I Something is like inside of me just wants to do it, and thinks that I can express here, can find an expression. And I just stayed. It wasn't very rational. It's just kind of like a movement from your heart that just takes you, I guess, to the places where you need to develop, where you need to develop your learning and your growth. And it just happened like that to me with certain things in my life as well. I studied English literature in the UNAM, which is a great university here in Mexico. It's great because you pay nothing. Like it's crazy. You pay like 3 pesos for, I mean, it's like a jewel that we have as Mexicans here. And I studied literature there. And when people ask me, was it very premeditated? I was like, no, it was just a hunch from the heart. And I got there. I loved reading. I don't even know how I ended up in the classroom, how I got all the papers to be accepted to the university. I was just one day sitting there, and I stayed there for 4 years thinking I was going into like literature criticism, to be a critic and writing my essays. And at the very end of the career, the theater world, which I had kind of forgotten, started pushing me back into that world. I started getting some strange calls from people I barely knew, telling me, we want you for a play. And so it got me, it kind of drew me back to the theater world. And it was just not, I'm telling you, very rational. It was just movements from life. And I stayed in that, and the theater, and doing plays until a sort of idea of what a career is came up, but much later in life, for me.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing theaters, you're doing plays.
Yes.
And then I believe I read that you submitted a tape for A Man Called Otto to audition, and that the director absolutely loved you. What made you go from theater and plays to then something like A Man Called Otto? Because it seems like your career took a big jump in doing that. What was the motivation or the drive to take that leap?
Yeah. Well, it was a couple of years that led into that, because I started doing theater for many years after doing the English literature, the major, and I was just doing theater. Whoever invited me, I was there. I did a lot of characters, I was very just doing that and not thinking about anything else. And eventually, I did musical theater, which I hadn't done before, but since I had sung when I was like 15, 14, so I kind of did musical theater jump, which was very important in my career in Mexico, because I got into a play that's called Mentiras. That was a musical from the 80s. In Mexico and Latin America, there in the 80s, there were a lot of like women singers that were super dramatic and super theatrical, with great songs, with great, great dramatic songs. And they did a musical, from these songs. And so I got into that, and that was like a boom here in Mexico. And I stayed in that play for 3 years. And after that, since so many people saw the play, they started inviting me to movies here in Mexico. And so I did the jump from theater through musical theater, and I started doing movies. And later on, they started inviting me for TV shows. I did another TV show, which was great, called Cuervos, Club de Cuervos. I don't know if it was seen in the States, but it was the first show from Netflix outside of the US. It was like the experiment,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. So they did that, and it was a boom, and I did that for 4 years. And then that led one thing led to the other, and then came the audition for A Man Called Otto years after that. So it was like little by little, having experience in all these other fields from acting.
So you had the theater experience, you had
Mhm.
the Mexico film experience. What
Yeah.
was it like going from that experience of Mexican filming to US filming? Was there a big jump? Was it a big, other than the language, what was the transition like? Was it familiar? Was it all new feeling?
Uh-huh.
How did that work? How did that
Um,
translate?
yeah, well, I mean, it was nice to see how film is film everywhere in the world. There's something that is the same, I suppose. I felt it like that in Spain. I have not worked in many places in the world, but talking from the US and Mexico, there is a sort of thing that unifies the profession, the amount of professionalism, everybody doing their thing like a clock to make the whole logistics of what we're creating together work. And so the crews are very similar in its dedication and in making the magic of what we're doing together. So that was really nice to see, this that it's very similar. Obviously, there's differences because there's differences in cultural differences, but it's the same language, it's the same language from cinematography, the world of movies and of filming. And what was different, of course, for me was the language, learning how to use my English, which I hadn't used for a long time, and just putting it into gear and trying to be truthful with it, trying to assimilate it into my inner reality as an actress, and trying to work truthfully, speaking the language and using it and assimilating to my feelings and everything. So that was a challenge, but I think I got into it, and as the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and and yeah, so that was the biggest challenge for me and the biggest difference for me, really.
One of the
There's
things I liked about A Man Called Otto and
Yeah.
even Stick is your character there's been an intimacy in your
Oh yeah.
roles as far as, you're not in a big group production. It's been you and Tom Hanks or you and the small group traveling together. It
Yeah.
hasn't been like this big production. There's been an intimacy to it. Is that
Yes.
something that you find enjoyable? Is that something that draws you to these roles?
Of course. No, it's I find it so enjoyable, and it's part of, the deep gratitude that I feel for the opportunity to make such intimate scenes, as you say, in Otto with Tom Hanks, and in Stick with the cast and with Owen, and having these moments of intimate interchange and being the recipient of of these actors who I admire so much, of their emotion and their dialogue, and having the the pleasure and the honor as an actor to listen to them, and having this interchange. So yeah, this is great. This is a great. I'm very conscious of what that is and the gift that is, and I just try to cherish it in the moment. I try to make the best of it in the moment, and try to be really open hearted myself as an actor when I'm put in those positions, within the projects. I try to give my best, but open up my heart, and just try to be a good player for for them, and to give them back what I'm receiving from them. Yeah.
And what was it like working with Tom Hanks? I mean, meeting him for the first time, even as a young actor that's new to the U.S. industry. I mean, that has to be a huge. I mean, I'd be nervous.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. Well, yes, of course I was really nervous. And the same with, with Owen. And of course, you're like, okay, what's this gonna be like? I hope I do my best. But they were just so gracious, both of them, I have to say, so welcoming. Tom and Owen, when I arrived on the set, that I felt immediately at ease, in the sense of like, okay, I feel welcomed, and I feel, such a nice, warm thing that they're giving me, that, I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to be safe. And yeah, I felt that with both Tom and Owen. With Tom, we had a little bit more time. When I arrived to the project, we went for dinner, beforehand, with Rita and Tom, and we talked a lot. And in the case of Tom, he like turned around and he saw me and he called my name and he hugged me, and that was like something really, really special and welcoming. And he was always super warm. And with Owen as well, I mean, the same thing. He hugged me. He said, Mariana, thing. But with the stick, I arrived late to the filming because I lost my passport right before having to travel. It was like a big drama here. All my visas, my passport. So I was like, oh my God, am I not going to be able to make it? This is super stressing. But so I was running a little bit late. But when I did arrive, everybody was rooting for me to get there, and really was very when I arrived, everybody was really nice, like, oh my God, you're here, thank God. And Owen was like this, and he was just so sweet from the first moment. And yeah, I was very grateful for that, because it really makes the difference. And it really makes the difference during filming, that the person who is leading, the main actor who's leading the project, and who's like the driving force energetically, and with their own who are leading this, is giving that off. And in both cases, that they were, Tom and Owen were just so, like I'm saying, so gracious with their own energy, and making sure everybody was feeling okay, and making us feel secure and safe and joyful to be there, honestly.
Now, Peter, who plays your son, Santi, how much time do you have to get to know him, to kind of get that mother-son relationship kind of felt? Is that something that just, as an actor, you just jump into it? Was there time that you two
Well,
got to spend
sometimes.
together?
Yeah, no, we didn't, because I arrived late and we didn't have time. He kept writing me some messages to a phone that I had lost. So I was not getting those messages. He's like, I wrote to you like 10 messages, and I'm sorry, it was another phone. So we didn't have that time beforehand. But it was really, I'm telling you, everybody was so open in the set of Stick, Jason and Owen and Peter. And the welcoming was immediate. And as soon as I got there, he hugged me and he's like, Mommy, you're here. Okay. And we took our time to talk, because we weren't immediately going to film a scene together. There was like something else. And so during those moments that we had together on sets, we just talked about the character, and we talked about the moment, and we talked about the scene that we were about to film. And I guess we just connected immediately. And after that, of course, me and Peter did an effort to hang out, outside of what we were filming, on our own time, to go for coffees, to keep talking about our relationship. We also did that work like outside of the set, and we grew to have a very close, relationship.
One of the things I like about Stick is that it's a golf series, but it's not necessarily about golf. Much like Ted Lasso was a series about football or soccer, but you didn't have to like or even enjoy soccer to enjoy the series.
Yeah.
Going into it, did you have any idea about golf?
No, I didn't. The only echo was Lee Trevino, that they kept asking me if I was related to him throughout my growing years of my life. When I went to the States, everybody was like, are you related to Lee Trevino? So I always think that he was like the precursor of, my silent mentor leading me to this series. So that was my only reference. I played some golf when I was a kid. We went to South Padre Island in Texas as kids because it was so close to Monterey. We used to go there, and there was a little golf course that actually, talking to someone that lives in South Padre, told me that it was recently stripped. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to visit it again. It was my plan. And it was actually a golf ball. The little house, was a golf ball. And it was like really, really cute. And we went there and played as kids, but that was my only experience with it, really. But just getting into the when I working in the series and learning about the sport and thinking about the sport and watching it done, because Peter, of course, got really into it. He practiced a lot. Owen as well. Every time, between scenes, he would go off in his golf cart and just play. I think they both really got into it. And I fell in love with like the idea of golf, to dimension the kind of philosophical aspect of the game, analyzing it, thinking about it in those conceptual terms, and how it parallels life in many aspects, and yeah, everything that it entails, in the sense that it's a challenge about you with yourself. You are competing with other people, but it's you with your inner capacity of making a strategy. It's just much more introspective and contemplative as a sport. And the fact that you have to walk through it, you're not running like in other sports. You have to walk through this like route, and it's just really interesting symbolically.
Now, your role
Yeah.
is one that I think many shows could have chosen to either write out or not have, but you're along for the ride. What
Yeah.
was it about the role that drew you to it?
Well, I love the idea of being able to play a Latin American mom, a Mexican mom, because I draw experience obviously from my own life. And Latin American moms and Mexican moms are they do everything for their children. They're very much like, for their sons, they do a lot of sacrifices. I mean, moms all over the world, but the Latin American moms tend to be really overprotective sometimes, which is the case of Elena too. They're very protective of their kids. They don't know sometimes when to release their kids into their freedom, and they keep them too much beneath their wings for some time, and this is something that Elena learns along the way. I love that she gets to witness this trip towards self-discovery that she sees in Santi. But moms, Mexican mom, like my grandmother in Mexico, she had 7 in my dad's side. She was like this matriarch, all her kids. She was a widow very soon, very early in her life. And she did everything to have her family, take off. And the kids were always, my father and his brothers and sisters were very grateful always. There was a lot of effort put into that. So I love that. I love being able to do a character that pays attention to what a mom goes through also as a mom. The thin line that sometimes is between of education. How much do you have to be there for your kid? When to let them go, when to keep accompanying them, and when to keep protecting them from the world. Because at this age, the teenage years are very vulnerable, very delicate threshold into like adulthood. So I love that in this show I get to do this character that is in that place in her life and in Santi's life, in this like, yeah, this pivotal changing place for both of them.
And that's one of the I in my review, I said that Stick was a really, really good series. Felt that there was a couple of things that kept it from being a great series, but still a really, really good series. I like that your character wasn't just along for the ride, that she's actually given some very good storylines that we'll see coming up. She is given some meat to work with. She's not just the mom doting along. And so I really enjoyed that. There's some storylines that get left unattended, but I'm hoping for a season 2 that can wrap things up. But I also think some of the writing was a little bit short in connecting the dots. I think it was one of those things where you have a connect the dot puzzle, and you can skip a couple of dots and still see that it forms a bunny rabbit. But there's a couple of things I wanted to see that weren't fully connected, that hopefully in season 2 they connect a little bit more. But you were given some great storylines. There's some very funny moments with some of the characters that I won't reveal who, but
Mhm.
You have some great scenes coming up that I think fans that have enjoyed seeing the first couple episodes of you will very much enjoy what you're given to work with, and that you weren't just kind of tagging along as mom, but you were given some real substance to that.
Yeah.
Without giving away any scene or any particulars of upcoming stuff, was there a particular scene that was most exciting for you to film?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that also, like, much like in life, like the connecting dots aren't very visible all the time. Some of them aren't visible, and they're like in the surface, and we learn how to detect them sometimes if
Hmm.
we're lucky. But some of the connecting dots are underlying, and the characters are just starting off in this like adventure, in this like trip that they're embarking themselves into, the like this embarking in this like voyage or journey of self-discovery. And like any journey of self-discovery, some things are up for as I saying, some things are visible, some others are not, but they're all there. Like, I love that the writing here in the show is like is has that like underlying emotion and underlying movement, tectonic movement of things that are about to happen but that don't, things that are said but others that are bite back, and that you don't say it. Specifically, Elena has a lot of moments when she's very outspoken and she has the inner tools to be able to express herself and what she's feeling, but other moments when she's just she doesn't express what she's feeling. She's just like, okay, I'm gonna bite that back, and not even consciously, because that's how we work. And I love that Elena has both these things, and I think all the characters go through these moments when it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on with me, and I'm not even conscious of what I have to say or do in a particular moment. And as to what you were asking, I'm sorry, what did you ask in the end?
Without giving away any scene details,
Yeah.
was there anything particular that you like? What's something that you're excited for people to see coming up that
Yeah.
was fun to film?
Um, I think just I think there are a lot of things, fun things coming up. I think there's an emotional thing that starts and that continues to grow as the series unravels. And I think that we as spectators very much go with the characters in this trip emotionally as well. I'm hoping that happens, because that's like, I'm hoping that the people are like with us in this trip. Yeah, I'm just excited for people to get there and be with us in the moments where it's crucial for each character, what's going to happen. And I hope people are there cheering along with us or not in whatever happens next.
Elena really stands out as the surprise, I think, of the series. The way that her character goes and how things are formed took some turns that I didn't expect, and
Yeah,
I
that's
and I absolutely loved them. And we can't go into detail, but uh,
yeah. Thank you.
there's some things that happened to her growth wise
Yeah.
that really were surprising and enjoyable. And I think Elena, of all of the people, has the biggest arc as far as growth and development. I mean, Sante and them have, their story, but you can kind of guess where that is going to some extent. But I think Elena is the biggest surprise. I think where she goes and that journey was probably really surprising. There's a couple of surprises that I didn't see coming that I really enjoyed and didn't think would happen. But all of a
Hmm.
sudden, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Was that part of what drew you to her?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I think that much like golf, the sport that you think your ball is going to get exactly where you're planning and you're calculating that it's going to go, there's always an element of unpredictability where you don't control the outcome. And I think all these characters and all the arcs of the characters have that element of, you really don't know how unpredictable human nature is going to act. You think you can predict, but then it doesn't fit with that predictability. There's a lot of elements in the circumstances, in the exterior elements, that just take the outcome into another direction. And I think the series works with this. And so I think that, yeah, I take what you say, like that you didn't expect some things of Elena, which is great because, yeah, I mean, once we go into a voyage with a bunch of people we don't know, I think that every trip, every journey for everyone, taking a car and just hitting the road, going anywhere for every life is really crucial because every trip confronts you to yourself. Every trip makes you look into yourself and changes you. You know how people say, like, I was not the same after I went to that trip, na. So trips are always changing us because they make us, they challenge our view of ourselves in a different circumstance, in a different ambiance, and we get to surprise even ourselves with things that come out, contents, inner contents that we hadn't allowed even ourselves to come out, for us to deal with it, for us to be confronted with our own pains, with our own grievances, with our own sense of grief. And I think that this trip makes every character just kind of open up to others and to themselves. And I think that's really, really nice to witness and act as an actor,
So my final question, and I ask this of everyone, is when it comes to actors and actresses, we say Mariana, who starred in A Man Called Otto, Mariana, who stars in Sticks. But when you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror, splash a little water on your face, who is it that you see?
Good existential question, just like our series that is very existential too. So I see myself. I just see like this woman who gets up every morning and tries to make sense of the things that she has to do every day, take responsibilities, try to connect the dots of all her actions and just the life of the adult, every day is like full of challenges and responsibilities that have to be tended to. And yeah, I just, try to make myself, how can I put this? I try to not lose contact and not recognize myself in the things that I do. That's in acting wise or in my everyday life. So I try to, everything that I do, trying to lead it back to me, and to recognize myself, because it also happens that sometimes you do things that you stop recognizing who you are to yourself. And that's also part of, the things that we have to learn. But I just try to do that. I live very simply. I live day to day like a lot of actors. I don't plan a lot of things. I work with what comes in the moment. I think all actors are a little bit of a nomad soul. We are all like on the road, just like Stick, on the RV. We're all like on this road going from town to town, like the old actors, like picking up your little life and doing your little show and your little life, and you keep walking. And I truly live my life like that a bit. I'm very detached and just working in the moment, really.
Well, Mariana, thank you so much for coming on. Again,
Thank
Stick
you.
is available on Apple
Yes.
TV. I think 3 episodes are out by now, but
Yes.
there's some
It's
funny, enjoyable things, especially with your character coming up, that
Thank
I
you,
think
Greg.
fans of yours will really enjoy, and even fans just getting to know you. So I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming
and
on.
also and also, Greg, I want to make a point of in Apple Music, of the soundtrack of the series. It's just such a good road trip, beautiful, heartfelt existential soundtrack that I really hope people, connect to that and enjoy it as part of this show.
And I'll include a link to that in this
Yeah,
interview
thank
then.
you.
So
Thank you so much. Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, thank you,
All right.
Greg, for the time, and thanks everyone, and see our show. Go watch it. You'll enjoy it.